Well, welcome to The Perspective. I'm Lorie Hartshorn, and I'm really glad you're here today because I bet you, like me, love adventure stories. You know, the kind where the hero swoops in and rescues those that are suffering, and they bring healing and restoration and redemption. Well, that's what you're going to hear today, a story of an organization that swoops in literally with airplanes to rescue and bring redemption to people all around the world. My guest today is Tim Bax. He's the Vice President of International Staff and People Care with Mission Aviation Fellowship, better known as MAF. For over 75 years, MAF has been bringing help, hope, and healing to some of the most isolated people in the world. And they're using aviation and technology. They deliver food and medicine and missionaries and relief workers into places that are otherwise unreachable. Well, today we'll talk with Tim about what makes this mission so vital and why aviation is at the heart of it, and how Canadian staff and supporters play a unique role in this global work. Well, hey, Tim, welcome to The Perspective. It's really great to have you here.
Oh, it's great to be here, Lorie. Thanks for having me.
You know, I know about Mission Aviation Fellowship, right? Because I told you earlier, my uncle had an airplane, passionate about flying. And when he passed away, his number one mission organization that he loved was MAF. And he donated a plane to this ministry. And I just watch his heart for this ministry, but a lot of people might not know about it. So take us back. I want you to first tell us your personal story. Like, why are you involved in, MAF, Mission Aviation Fellowship? What drew you there?
Yeah, thanks for asking. That's amazing. So my journey towards MAF actually starts on a bit of a tragic note.
Okay.
It actually started with the loss of a dear friend of mine by the name of Ben Eskert, who was a MAF pilot serving in Indonesia.
Yes.
And Ben and I got to know each other as his pastor back in Indiana. He was in my young adults group, and he met his future bride in our group. Had the opportunity to do their wedding, and was there when he graduated from MAF and got his assignment. And then we commissioned him as a church, and then served for about a year and a half on the field, and then he drowned. So nothing aviation related at all. It was just a Sunday. They were at the beach, and a couple of young Indonesian boys got swept out in the waves, and he went after him, and he was lost.
So sorry. What a tragedy.
And so I ended up going back and doing his funeral, and through that opportunity to honor his life, I connected with MAF in the U.S. And when I got back, they mentioned to me that there was an MAF Canada in this place I've probably never heard of called Guelph, and I was living about 30 minutes down the road. And so I think out of desire to honor his life, I began volunteering with MAF Canada and did that for about 4 years, and then was offered the opportunity to come on staff. And that's been 15 years now.
That is amazing. I mean, it's amazing how God draws us into different areas of ministry, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm so sorry for that loss, but we know that God also redeems things.
Amen.
and multiplies things in people's lives, even through death and loss. For those that aren't familiar then, tell us, what is MAF, and why is aviation, central to its work?
Sure, love to. Well, MAF got its start in about 1945 when a couple of Royal Air Force pilots who had seen the tremendous potential for destruction in the aircraft, they witnessed that in the war, began to dream and think about how could this tool be used for great good in the kingdom of God. And then others started to think about this in different parts of the world. And eventually this mission to serve together to bring help, hope, and healing through aviation began to be birthed and to grow, so that isolated people around the world could experience life change, be transformed by the love of Christ. And that's really our mission. Our vision has been since 1940s. And since that time, we had one aircraft in 1946, which Betty Green flew our first flight down into Mexico. And now there's 120 aircraft in about 29 countries. And we have the privilege of partnering together with about 1,500 amazing organizations, probably most Canadian denominations, with missions endeavors globally. We have the privilege of flying their mission staff, great organizations like Samaritan's Purse and World Visions and Eden International and Halo Trust. And so we love having the privilege of partnering together with other like-minded organizations who are doing great work on the ground to further the kingdom. And we're just a partner with them to increase impact together for the glory of God.
Okay, so that partnership, give me a practical example of what that looks like.
For sure. So I think about an organization that we partner with in Indonesia, Wycliffe.
Okay.
Amazing organization. They're doing Bible translation. And I think about our pilot, Canadian pilot, Greg Dole. He's been serving in Merauke, Indonesia for many years. Last summer, he had the privilege of flying this Wycliffe missionary, Miosuk was her name, and into the community of Kodiak. And she's been translating the scriptures there for 20 years
Wow.
and finally reached that point at which the New Testament was ready for publishing. And so he had the privilege of flying Miosuk and 2,000 brand New Testaments in the IU language, first time for that community. And you better believe there was a celebration on the other end of that flight. So we love partnering together with organizations like Wycliffe, where we know that God's word is going to transform lives and transform lives from generation to generation.
And I hear transportation and transformation. That's what I hear you say.
Yes,
You know what I
absolutely.
mean? Like God's going to transform life because you are providing transportation, like flights into, I'm sure, areas that are rather difficult to reach. Like some of them perhaps cut off by mountains or jungle areas or things like that. Can you give an example of flights that maybe were, you know, the type of areas that are hard to reach that only MAF could get to?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we intentionally we sense that our calling is to isolated places, and that requires a high level of skill and preparation and training and all of that. And so we do find a lot of our ministry opportunity is in Indonesia and Papua New Guinea, where you've got mountains, you've got weather, you've got airstrips that are literally cut into the side of mountains. And we also do work with amphibious aircraft as well in the rivers and the jungles. And so that is kind of what we specialize in doing, going to the hard places for the sake of the gospel.
So how do people get trained to fly those difficult places? Like that's not your average pilot's
Right.
license, you know?
It's a long haul for sure. And we're so proud of our pilots and engineers because they do it because they're called by God. But it's a long road of preparation. So they have to get the commercial pilot's license here
Yeah.
in Canada, which takes a while. And then we need them to build about 1,000 hours of experience before they come to us. And then after they come to us, we still have a training program that takes about 3 months so that they learn to fly MAF small aircraft into the mountains, into grass strips, gravel strips, dirt runways, thinking about things like animals coming across the runway, those sorts of things so that they're well prepared before they go overseas. And then when they go overseas, they have a training specific to that region into that program. So in some countries like Papua New Guinea, we have hundreds of airstrips and they need to be checked out in each single one of those airstrips before they can fly solo. So it's a rigorous training program, but that's part of our safety culture. We want to make sure that our pilots and engineers can serve as long as God calls them to and to
Yeah.
do the great work they do.
I'm sure there's families all around the world located working with MAF and having different assignments. Some of them I heard recently had to be evacuated due to, I'm sure you're working in areas where there's civil unrest. You know, how does MAF care for and protect its people who, you know, are serving in these dangerous areas? Like, what's your role or responsibility in that?
Yeah. Lord, this has been a tough year. We sometimes go multiple years without any evacuations. And this year we've had 3 programs evacuate. We've had to evacuate families from South Sudan, from Haiti, and from the East Democratic Republic of the Congo, which is very unusual. But as you can imagine, that's very disruptive for our families. And it breaks our hearts when we have to leave the people behind that we've been called to serve. And so these are really difficult situations. This is an extraordinary year for sure. But to prepare our people for overseas service, especially in places where there is civil unrest, we do take that duty of care very seriously. And so part of what we do pre-field with our mission staff is we put them through a 3-day safety and security training course where, first of all, we start by talking about a theology of risk and what things are worth risking for the gospel.
Right.
And why the gospel is worthy, but what risks aren't worth taking as well.
Yeah.
So we talk about a theology of risk with our people, but then we do a lot of practical training exercises around security. We do stress inoculation training so that when they find themselves overseas in high stress situations, they have some tools in their tool belt to respond, scripture to go to, verses to think through, breathing techniques, those sort of things.
Right.
And then we take them through scenarios that they might likely face overseas, like a roadside stop by groups that are unauthorized to stop them. And we help them think through, all right, this likely to be a financially motivated crime or a politically motivated crime. So we really work hard with them to prepare them well for overseas service. And then we have teams overseas in each program that are safety and security managers. So they work with our national and international directors who work with intelligence communities overseas to ensure that we're staying on top of things like troop movements or rebel groups in the area. And we're working with other missions organizations to make sure that we have the most up-to-date information so that we can, as much as possible, keep our people out of harm's way.
Well, it's an incredible ministry. I want you to tell us more. We're going to take a short break and we'll be right back with Tim and the story of MAF.
Hey, welcome to The Perspective. Mike Sherbino here. We're glad you're with us.
It's all right here. Watch when you want, where you want.
Well, welcome to The Perspective. I'm Lorie.
Real stories, honest questions, a fresh perspective, right where you are.
Today, take time to relish
The Perspective. Follow, like, share. You're part of the mission.
What a fascinating organization, Mission Aviation Fellowship. Tim, thank you for being here. And as I listen to you talk about the risks that these pilots and their families are taking to serve in this area, what's the big why behind, why would people sign up for this? Why would pilots be committed to take such really high risk compared to the day job that they could just go to an office close by? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
why would
for
they
sure.
do it?
Yeah, at the end of the day, it goes back to calling. When I think about our pilots and engineers, they could work for Air Canada and WestJet and make a lot more money and have a much more simple lifestyle. But at the end of the day, I think of Jesus' words to the 11 before he ascended into heaven. That calling to be his witnesses in Jerusalem and Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth. And so that sense of calling to be a part of the kingdom work, to bring the message of hope of Jesus to people in even isolated places and really hard to reach places around the world is at the heart of it. So that when our pilots, sweat through their uniforms at 5:30 a.m. before they get to the plane, or our engineers are wrenching on aircraft in the middle of an airfield where UN peacekeeping helicopters are taking off, or where our young moms caring for their kiddos at home are tucking them into bed with mosquito nets to prevent malaria and dengue, and they're bleaching vegetables. When all of those hardships are a part of their day-to-day life, it goes back to calling.
Yeah.
That sense of we're here to be a part of taking the good news of Jesus Christ to the ends of the earth.
You know what? It is. Because, and really, this is the ultimate calling, that we would be willing to take up our cross and even be willing to give our own life as Christ exemplified for us, right? There's no better way to live than in the calling that God's called you to. What's Canada's role? You mentioned peacekeeping, which is a huge part of, we are a peacekeeping nation. That's often how even our own military enter countries. What unique role does Canada play in this global aviation mission?
Well, a few years ago, I had a sobering experience. I was at a uh, cemetery for Canadian soldiers who had died in the line of duty. And it's really grown my gratitude for the country that we have and the cost at which the freedom we have came. Peacekeeping with MEF Canada and MEF globally looks a little differently, and probably to best illustrate that, I want to take you back to 1946 to a story that you're probably familiar with in Ecuador, when 5 missionaries were martyred, trying to reach out with the love and hope and peace of Christ to the Waodani people. Those people were a warring people. They were not a peace-loving people. In fact, the homicide rate among those people before that time was about 60%. 60% of their adults were killed by homicide. But then, of course, these 5 missionaries, including Nate Saint, MEF pilot, and Jim Elliott, were lost at the ends of their spears. But Jim Elliott's wife, Elizabeth, went back. Nate Saint's sister went back. They shared that love of Christ, the hope and peace that comes through the gospel with them. And over time, that became a part of their story and journey and transformation. And today, in that same community, the homicide rate is 90% less.
Wow.
Because of the gospel of Christ in that community. So peacekeeping looks a little different with MEF, but we still reach out to communities in Papua New Guinea and Indonesia that still have warring tribes like the Waodani that need to hear the love of Christ.
And we, many have heard the story and are inspired by Elizabeth Elliott and Jim Elliott, Nate Saint, and what God did with the loss of life there, right, for the sake of the gospel. You know, with humanitarian funding shortfalls around the world, why is it important that MAF keeps flying then? And what's at stake if they don't fly?
Yeah, huge challenge right now globally and with many of our ministry partners. When I think of our ministry right now in Papua New Guinea, hundreds of airfields, we do about a medevac almost every day, about 300 a year. And not too long ago, we got a call from our Angola program because a young man had stepped on a landmine, and he needed a medevac immediately to save his life. The ambulance ride would have been 15 hours. And these are sorts of stories that come out of PNG or Angola all the time. And oftentimes when we bring that physical healing or a part of that chain of care providers, we also have the opportunity to share the gospel with them. So there's the physical healing that would be lost, but more importantly, that spiritual hope and the opportunity to learn about the healer behind that hope. And so the ministry of MEF really has a life-changing impact in many places overseas. And so the resources that come in through our generous donors are just absolutely essential to work that we do.
What are some of the needs, if you would say to people listening, I didn't either know about MAF or this is something that I'd like to get involved with now? What would that look like for us average, even Canadians or our U.S. friends watching?
Absolutely. Our greatest need right now is aircraft maintenance engineers and pilots and teachers and operations folks. Right now, our greatest need is people. And one of our greatest tasks is to reach our emerging generations, young women and men who have a passion for aviation, who are great with their hands, that are technically minded, to pair that with their passion for the work of the Great Commission. And so we're trying to get the word out to future generations, but also to folks maybe in midlife who are thinking about a second career and maybe doing something different in the second half of their life to further the kingdom. So that's definitely our greatest need. And I think about me as an 18-year-old applying to Canadore College to be an aircraft maintenance engineer. I had no idea you could do this for Christ. And I want every young person to know that, who has an aptitude for aviation and an interest in the work of the Great Commission.
Well, it does take people, and God gives us unique skills. I didn't know that that's your background in, so you fix up the planes. Is that what you do?
No, that was an early dream that never came to fruition.
Oh, okay. What's your recent experience of being out in the field? Have you been out in the field lately?
Yeah, I do have the opportunity to get out to the field 2 times a year. So not too long ago, I was in Congo, which we recently had to evacuate. And I was amazed to see our engineering team literally on the side of a runway where UN peacekeeping helicopters are taking off, rotor washes everywhere, and they're changing a turbine on one of our caravan aircraft right on the side of the airstrip. And that's a beautiful testament to their skill,
Yeah.
but a sense their calling and their determination and
Yeah.
resilience to
Yeah.
continue to be there during a difficult time like that.
Well, you know what? God bless you, Tim, your team, the work of MAF. And if people want to get involved, maf.ca.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Love to hear from them.
Well, we would like you to check that out. What an inspiring story of people who are, in many ways, sacrificing their lives for the sake of the gospel. We're so grateful for the ministry of MAF. We'll be right back.
Did you know you can stream our shows on demand? We are thrilled to announce the launch of our channel on Roku TV. You can now watch the Perspective shows anytime you like and navigate through a variety of playlists. How to find us? Simply search for the Perspective channel, find our logo screen, and save it under your channels of choice on your Roku selection menu. Don't miss out. New feature shows will be updated weekly.
There's a phrase that sometimes we've heard. It's called saber rattling. It's where leaders of different countries try to impress the other country that they are either greater, what they're able to do if they're put in a corner. We follow that a lot of times when we watch what is unfolding with wars around the world, with Ukraine, with Russia, with China, with the States, and in a much lesser degree with Canada. We come to the book of Colossians today, and it really gives us a sense of peace as we see the level of instability in the world, because it talks about the supremacy of Christ, and in particular that he is supreme over all creation. And throughout time immortal, men and women have sought for power and recognition and the fame that comes with being over all. But today's reading is going to teach us that Christ alone is the one who is over all. And we need to be listening for what it is that he is saying, rather than being totally preoccupied with the saber rattling of other nations and countries. Listen to how Paul describes Christ being over all in chapter 1 in verse 15 of the book of Colossians. He says, "The Son is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For in him all things were created, in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities. All things have been created through him and for him. And he's before all things, and in him all things hold together." And it's in that context that Paul would write in the book of Ephesians these words, "Finally be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power, and put on the full armor of God, so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." The beauty of the passage lies in this. It's when Paul describes Jesus as the one in whom we see God. His characteristics, demeanor, and attributes paint an exact replica of God the Father. Christ is described here as the firstborn over all creation. And in the context of Psalm 89, God extols the greatness of his Son, who it says he is the one and the same with the Father. Not only is he the creator, but his love for us stands firm forever. Psalm 89, verse 2. And Christ is also seen here as the creator of what is seen and not seen. Let that sink in. What does it actually mean? Could it be a reference to the spirit world? I believe that it does. I believe that it speaks to this truth, knowing that he is over all the powers of darkness as well, including demonic powers, including Satan himself, including what world rulers and powers propose that they are going to do, and the carnage that they will bring if you do not line up with their ideology. The Bible tells us that there is one greater. And he is so great, the Bible says that the day will come when every knee will bow and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. Possibly what is greater than anything we've looked at today is the promise that is there for you and I. It's in that phrase, he is before all things, and in him, Paul writes, all things are held together. You know, with the fragile nature of life, the incredible comfort is this. It's in knowing that he holds all things together. Like that old song that we would sing, he holds the whole world in his hands. He literally does. He holds you in his hands as well as he holds me. And the peace that that can give to us when we rest in that truth is something that can never be taken away from us, regardless of who we are, where we're going in life, or what happens. So allow this passage to bring us and bring you incredible comfort as we head into a new year of uncertainty, knowing this, that in the midst of the uncertainty, we can be certain of this, that Christ holds all things together in his hands.
Do you ever have questions in your life about who you are? Maybe you're in an identity crisis. We've all been there. It's part of the human experience. Do I have value? Do I have worth? What is my purpose in life? Well, I believe this is a very significant question to be answered. And I've written a book called Found. My name's Lorie Hartshorn, and I want to invite you on a journey of discovering your true identity. I want to lead you not only through my book, but through an 8-part video series where you can even gather with others and learn and discuss together about the truth of our identity, the beauty of it, and the freedom that we find when we are connected to Jesus. See, I believe that we lost our identity back in the beginning in the garden, and I want to unpack for you how Jesus, he restores it all. You can find your true identity in him. So why don't you come with me on this journey of discovering your true identity, your value and worth, and let's grow and learn together. Found. You can know that what was lost, it's all been found in Jesus. Well, thanks for joining us today. I was certainly inspired, as I'm sure you were, to hear the stories of what MAF is doing around the world. And I don't know, maybe God's calling you or someone you know. We need this next generation to engage in this unique kind of ministry. If that's you, go check out maf.ca. But we're here for you. If you have a concern, if you have a need in your life, call our prayer line at 1-855-910-6297. And some exciting things are happening over here at The Perspective. You can watch us in a lot of variety of places these days. If you go to theperspective.tv, our website, you'll find all those places there, but certainly our YouTube channel, we'd love to engage with you there. We're now on pray.com. We're now on NRB TV throughout the U.S. So thank you, first of all, for your support. We can't do this without you. So thank you for your support. Thank you for being there. And we're here for you. So give us a call. God bless you today.